everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to go through all of my Pan That palette options for next year. Now I did mention that I kind of already knew which palette I wanted to pick for next year, but I don't want to spoil it. But I still wanted to show you all of the options that I was thinking, and you can also let me know down in the comments which one you think I should do or which one you think I've picked to use for next year, and then I think it'll be interesting to see if anyone's right, or I might change my mind depending on how many people want me to use one palette over another. But yeah, I've got my palettes here. I'll just quickly talk about them, and yeah, let's go through it. So no particular order, but I do have the original Naked from Urban Decay. This is one of my oldest palettes in my collection, and my mother bought this for me for Christmas one year, and it was, I think, it was my first expensive palette that I'd ever owned. Usually I just had drugstore palettes before then, so it is a little bit special to me, as it is, I think, with a lot of people. When this first came out, it was quite special, and it was when Urban Decay was, you know, the it brand. But I really don't have too much use in this. I only have the two right here, these two pans, and everything else is kind of, it's not untouched. Obviously I have used it, but there isn't a lot of dippage going on in here. And because it is one of my oldest palettes, I'm thinking, well, should I try to pan the palette? It's very neutral, it's very cool toned, and it would work all year round for me, I'm thinking. So it could be a really good one to use for the year. The only thing that is against it is because it's not super versatile. It is just a neutral palette, and I like to, if I'm going to work on a palette, I feel like I need a palette that has a little bit more than just one tone, and this is very one tone for me. Even though I really like it, if I used it for a whole year straight, I think I would get really bored of it, but I still think that it should be considered as one of the palettes. And you never know, I mean, I have kind of chosen which one I want, but I haven't filmed, obviously, those videos, my intro, so I could change my mind. So everything is still up for grabs, but I know some people had tried to do this as a Pan That palette and they have successfully done it, and others have tried, and you know, the pans are pretty hard to pan. I mean, it took me so long to hit pan in these two, and Sin is my favorite shade, and it still took me a while to hit pan in it. So I don't know, it would be a little bit of a struggle too, just because I feel like Urban Decay, at least these pans, are pretty hard to hit. Okay, next up is actually not a very old palette for me, although it looks really, really horrible. It is my ABH Novena. I think this would be a really good Pan That palette for me because I really, really like this palette. It always comes up in my #1 or #2 ranked palettes because I just thoroughly enjoy it. It is not super interesting. I mean, when I was talking about the Urban Decay Naked palette, that's all sort of one tone and very neutral. This is still very neutral leaning, and it's the, you know, you get the purples and the pinks and the neutrals. So there's a little bit more variety, but it's still not super colorful, and you know, it's not that versatile, but it's a little bit more versatile, and it works really well for me, and I really like this palette. I only have one pan as well, so I really would have to do a lot of work in this, but I really enjoy using it. It's just such a pleasure to use. I really love the looks that I end up creating, so this would be a joy to use if I chose it as a Pan That palette. And yeah, I don't know, maybe it will be one of them. I really don't know. You let me know if you think this would be a good one to do. I've seen a number of people have this as a Pan That palette as well, and I don't know what's wrong with me because I cannot pan ABH. I find it so hard to hit pan in these formulas, but everyone else finds it easy. So that is my second choice. Next up, I've got another one of my oldest palettes. This is from Primark. It is the Rose Quartz. I believe it was a dupe of a Tarte palette at the time, but I couldn't tell you. But this is what it looks like. And this one again is pretty neutral. It does have a little bit of the golds, and it also has the reds, and there's a little bit of mauve as well, and you've got the black. So again, I feel like it's neutral leaning, but it has a little bit more variety than the Naked palette. And it's not the best quality, but you know, I do enjoy it. And I have 3 pans in it so far, and I don't know, the pans are pretty shallow. I haven't used it in a while. I think it's been a whole year since I've used this. But I don't know, I feel like I'm neglecting it. It's one of my oldest palettes. It would be fun to see how far I get with it. And to be honest, if I did pan it or got really close to, like, you know, making a good dent, it's not a palette that I would necessarily miss, because I wouldn't be able to repurchase it. Not that I would want to repurchase it, but it's not a palette that I would miss. If I panned this one, I'm gonna miss this and I might wanna have to rebuy it again. So that's another thing that's going on in my mind. And then the Naked Original is the original, and it's obviously discontinued, and it's like such a classic. So I don't know, I'm just like thinking, what do I do? But this one is another contender. You know, I think it's a good one to consider panning, and you know, I can make some pretty looks with it even though the formula isn't great. Next up is kind of an interesting one, but I thought it'd be fun to work on this one, and it is the Nomad Tokyo palette. So I've been working on this quite a lot this year already, mostly in my Zodiac Panner. I've had a few pans in here. I actually have 3 pans now in this palette, so you know, and I have pans in these 2 shades, which are probably the worst shades in the palette. So everything else would probably be a pleasure to work on. And I also have a pan in this one, and I'm working on this one. So all of these mattes and satin shades up here, I do not have pans in, and I can't imagine it would be that hard to hit pan in them if I actually had it as a pan that palette, and it's very colourful. And I'm thinking, well, you know, if I roll it in January, I'll have sort of the winter months where I can do some cool tones with, you know, with like the grungy cool tones. And then we'll go into spring, and I have all of these spring colors, and I can move that into summer too. And then by the time summer is over, yes, I might be sick of this, but I would have put a good dent in it. So I think it's a real contender that way. It's definitely not one of my oldest palettes. It is, the formula is fine. It does get a lot of hard pan down here, which is the biggest negative that I have about this palette. But yeah, I don't know. I think this would be a fun one to do, and it's very different to the others because it is not neutral. So, you know, I don't know if I get bored of it. So that's sort of, I think, a good one to consider. And then last but not least is my e.l.f. Retro Paradise palette. This one I've been talking about doing as a pan that palette. This is what it currently looks like. I had it in my project level up in the level 1, and I just completed that. And I already have, you know, as you can see, I've finished this one. I have some nice little pans in here, and the pans are shallow. So I'm just thinking I could probably do this as a pan that palette. Now it is discontinued. I would never be able to repurchase again, and I really like this palette. But the formula I feel like is going. It's been bashed around, dropped, thrown around by my son, and I don't know. I don't, you know, I would miss it, but at the same time I feel like, well, you know, this is probably the last year that it will work decently, and then I will probably have to declutter it or chuck it or whatever. So instead of doing that, should I just do a pan that palette with it? I don't know. You let me know. But it would be a fun one to do because it's got a lot of variety. It's got the neutrals that I always lean to, but I could also have the pops of colour depending on what I want to do. I've got the blues, the greens, the purples, the reds, oranges, the grungier tones like this Dijon colour. It just has a lot going for it, so it's a real contender. Yeah, I don't know. So those are my 5 palettes that I'm thinking of doing as a pan that palette. Let me know which ones you think I should do. If you'd watched my level up, I did talk about this a little bit, and I might want to do 2 palettes for the year. So I might want to do one for half of the year and then one for the second half of the year. So if there are 2 palettes here that you think I should do, let me know. I obviously already have my opinion of what I think I'm going to do, but you could sway me, and I think they're all really good options. So I don't know. I don't want to make the wrong decision and then 3 months down the line I'm like, I don't want to do this palette. So you know, it is a decision that I don't want to take lightly because I've never done a pan that palette, so I don't know how tricky it is, and I also get really bored. So you know, I'm kind of trying to trying to avoid that happening by adding some more of the colorful ones in there, or ones that have a little bit more variety than just this naked one. But you know, this is such an old palette, and I don't know. Let me know what you think. But thank you so much for watching. If you hadn't noticed, I am doing Vlogmas. I'm trying my best. I'm doing a little bit of filming in advance. This video is actually filmed in November. I'm actually filming it on Black Friday, but you know, I'm trying to do Vlogmas. I'm trying to do it. It's my first year of properly doing it. I'm not going to do all 31 days. I will take a little bit of a break during the Christmas days, like Christmas Eve, Christmas and Boxing Day and everything like that. But I do have a lot of videos planned back to back, so hopefully there's a lot of content coming your way. Hopefully I can stick to it. It is my first time, but I am enjoying it. I'm enjoying the challenge, and I was gone for a good 3 weeks, and then I was gone for 2 weeks in September. I've just missed a lot of filming in the last couple of months, so I feel like I need to make up for that. So anyway, thank you so much. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.